The alanine cycle, also known as the Cahill cycle, is a series of reactions in which amino acids are moved from the muscle to the liver. While there's not a lot of ways to write questions about this cycle, making it technically low yield, I always thought this cycle was an important cornerstone of foundational science. Understanding it teaches you how the body works at a very high level. I've never come across a video that really captures the simplicity and beauty of this cycle, so here's my attempt. I think it's a pretty good one. This scene takes place in a cycle gym. Take a look at the sign in the back. This is no ordinary cycle gym, but rather the hottest name in the business, Allo Cycle. Since allo is our recurring symbol for alanine, Allo Cycle is our anchor for the alanine cycle. After a big bad spin workout, you can cool off with a glass of ice cold allo. Next, take a look at these free weights on the left. The free weights here are our symbol for muscle, which is where our cycle begins. Along with the theme of gains, look at this protein shake here. It looks like someone wasn't being too careful and spilled their protein drink. How are they going to get their gains now? Anyways, this protein shake should remind you of amino acids. You know, since protein contains amino acids. Did I really need to explain that? The alanine cycle begins with the breakdown of amino acids, represented here by this protein shake. This breakdown produces amino groups. However, the muscle has no way to eliminate amino groups, and therefore we need a good way to get rid of all these amino groups. Speaking of amino groups, let's take a look at what this person has used for a protein shaker. A piece of ammo. Yep, this ammo is our recurring symbol for amino acid. Ammo for amino, get it? This ammo was released from our spilled protein shake, which helps me remember that the breakdown of amino acids produces amino groups in muscle. This amino group then changes hands a few times in order to get out of the muscle. To find the first carrier of our amino group, take a look at this alpha key. It's soaked in the spillage of this protein drink. This alpha key is our recurring symbol for alpha ketoglutarate. Alpha key for alpha ketoglutarate, get it? Alpha ketoglutarate is a carrier for amino groups, and it receives an amino group from amino acid breakdown. Next, take a look at this woman doing her glute workout. She's using the ultimate tool to develop better glutes, the glutamate. This glutamate should help you remember the compound glutamate. Glutamate is the next step of this pathway, and glutamate is produced when alpha ketoglutarate receives an amino group. That's right, alpha ketoglutarate plus an amino group makes glutamate. And since glutarate and glutamate sound alike, it should make sense that they are related compounds. Now you know just how they are related. This woman was doing a glute workout with her glutamate band. Looks like she was trying a little too hard and even knocked over her protein shake. Hey, watch it. It's been a bad day for our glute lady. In her glute pumping frenzy, she's kicked a little too high and even kicked our gym employee carrying his tray of refreshments. Take a closer look at this employee. See his do-rag? Makes him kind of look like a pirate. If you've seen our scene on the fates of pyruvate, you would know that a pirate is our recurring symbol for pyruvate. This pirate is super muscular, which helps us remember that we're still in the muscle here. Pyruvate in the muscle plays an additional role as an amino sink. It actually accepts an amino group from glutamate. You can remember this by picturing how our glute pumping lady has kicked our pirate's tray. We'll talk about the product of this reaction in a moment. But first, let's talk about the sugar on his tray. This pirate is responsible for refreshments, and he carries around a bit of extra sugar. You see, people want to control the sweetness of their drinks, right? This sugar here is our symbol for glucose. And as you may already know, glucose is metabolized by glycolysis, producing pyruvate. This is how muscles get their energy, but it's also how muscles produce pyruvate, which acts as an amino sink. So what does pyruvate become after accepting this amino group? Well, I was just getting to that. The glute kicking lady has really flipped our pirate's tray. See all those aloe drinks in the air? Yep, these are aloe drinks. Why else would we call this gym Allo Cycle? Anyways, the aloe here should remind you of the intermediate alanine. Allo for alanine. Got that? Alanine is the compound produced from pyruvate after accepting an amino group. Notably, the enzyme that catalyzes this reaction is alanine transaminase, better known as ALT. Alanine transaminase transfers an amino group from glutamate, putting it on pyruvate to make alanine. To remember how alanine carries an amino group, just look at how these aloe drinks are chilled. Yep, with pieces of ice-cold ammo. Ammo for amino group, remember? Alanine is critical for this cycle because it can exit the muscle, entering the bloodstream. In short, it provides a method for amino groups to get out of the muscle. To remember this fact, just picture how our alanine aloe drinks are spilling towards the right, away from our muscular patrons and their weights. But where are these drinks going? What, you didn't notice the juice bar earlier? It's super red and noticeable. Where else would all these aloe drinks be made? I want you to notice the unique shape of this juice bar. You are correct, it's shaped like a liver, all red and triangle-y. Because this liver-shaped bar is our symbol for the liver. The liver actually has the enzymes necessary to metabolize and eliminate amino groups. Consequently, the liver is the final destination for alanine from muscle, which is why our alanine aloe drinks are spilling towards the liver. Now let's take an inside tour of our drink operation. See those aloe drinks on the bar? Looks like our juice guy has already prepared a bunch of aloe for drinks. Since aloe is our symbol for alanine, this picture should help you remember that alanine is taken up by the liver. Next, take a look at the worker making our drinks. Just like his colleague, he's wearing a do-rag. Arr! I don't know why they have a thing for pirates here, but this pirate conveniently helps me remember pyruvate, the next intermediate in this pathway. Pyruvate is formed from alanine in the liver by the removal of an amino group. This reaction is catalyzed by alanine transaminase, this time working in reverse. Just remember that our juice-making pirate uses aloe to make new drinks, and you'll remember that pyruvate is produced from alanine in the liver. But this bar doesn't sweeten their aloe drinks. Instead, they put out a sugar jar, so people can add their own sugar. I mean, if you go to a spin gym, you probably want to control your own sugar intake, right? This sugar is our symbol for glucose, and glucose is regenerated from pyruvate by gluconeogenesis. This glucose is then exported out of the liver to the rest of the body, including the muscle. See how our other pirate employee left a trail of sugar in his journey over to the weight section? This picture should help you remember that some glucose ends up back in the muscle. And as we've already covered how glycolysis makes pyruvate in the muscle, this glucose completes the circle of this cycle. But what happened to all those amino groups removed from alanine in the liver? Well, the liver's job is to metabolize these amino groups and prepare them for elimination. Let's pan back to our liver-shaped bar. This time, let's take a look at the far side, at this alpha key here. This alpha key locks down our aloe in the fridge, since aloe is actually pretty expensive around here. And alpha is our symbol for alpha ketoglutarate, remember? Alpha ketoglutarate is the acceptor for amino groups from alanine, and I like to think of alpha ketoglutarate as an amino group acceptor found in a variety of different cells. Do you remember what alpha ketoglutarate becomes after accepting an amino group? That's right, it becomes glutamate. Just take a look at all these extra glutamate glute bands kept behind the counter, right by our alpha key. To help keep things tidy, our gym keeps all these extra glutamates behind the counter. In short, amino groups from alanine are put on alpha ketoglutarate, producing glutamate in the process. Finally, I want you to look at this drain, surrounded by some suspicious yellow liquid. I'm not sure whether that's aloe drink gone stagnant or actually urine, but it sure looks like urine. This urine is here to help you remember urea. Get it? Urine for urea. Urea is produced in the liver by putting all these amino groups into the urea cycle. This urine is going down the drain, just like how urea is eventually excreted in the urine. Check out our dedicated scene on the urea cycle to learn more about that pathway. And that's it. We've gone for a glute workout and enjoyed some refreshing aloe drinks. Let's recap. The alanine or Cahill cycle is responsible for the shuttling of amino groups from the muscle to the liver. In the muscle, amino groups are produced from the breakdown of amino acids. Alpha ketoglutarate accepts these amino groups, producing glutamate. Glutamate then takes these amino groups and transfers them to pyruvate. This transfer is catalyzed by the enzyme alanine transaminase, also known as ALT. Note that the pyruvate in muscle comes from the glycolysis of glucose, and after accepting an amino group, pyruvate becomes alanine. Alanine can then exit the muscle, traveling in the bloodstream to reach the liver. At the liver, alanine is then taken up and converted into pyruvate. This involves the removal of an amino group, catalyzed by alanine transaminase working in reverse. The amino groups are attached to alpha-ketoglutarate, producing glutamate, this time in the liver. Glutamate then takes these amino groups and puts them in the urea cycle, where they are packaged into urea for elimination. The pyruvate produced in the liver is then used for gluconeogenesis, making glucose. The glucose is then exported from the liver, and some of it ends up back in the muscle, closing out this cycle. And that's it for our aloe adventure. To summarize, amino groups need to be moved from the muscle to the liver, which eliminates it as urea. The only intermediates that can exit the cell and travel in the bloodstream are glucose and alanine. Therefore, everything else is just a player in producing these compounds in the muscle and liver. If there's anything to take away from this cycle, that's what I want you to remember. I hope you got a good workout. Until next time.